This week, we take a look at the science of sound. First, all the way back to the 14th century BCE, we talk about the Hurrian hymn number 6, the earliest full composed song in existence. Then we'll bounce forward to modern day and look at one jurisdiction's use of music within Masonry. And we'll wrap it up with a look at the phenomenon of the hypersonic effect. High frequency and low frequencies played together and alone had effects on the human brain, even when we couldn't hear them. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 653. I want to thank our contributors, our fellows, producers, and legacy partners of the WCY podcast. Since July of 2011, the WCY podcast has been creating weekly Masonic education for anyone interested in Freemasonry and its kindred sciences. As you all know, this is no small endeavor. It requires hours of work each week on top of what we all have: kids, spouses, and work, all the rest. If you visit WCYpodcast.com, you can check out the various ways that you can potentially assist our program in its production. Just click on Support the Show and check out all of the various options. My thanks goes out one more time to our current patrons and PayPal supporters. You can also click on the shop where you can get the limited edition producer's pin. We have just 150 of these available. Gold is back. We've got a brand new design with a classic twist on the original design, and it's an awesome pin. I hope you guys love it. You can pick it up for just $10 plus a couple dollars for shipping and handling. We've also got a number of other ways to help support the show that are a little bit different. I do handmade leather work, so you can find all of that on there as well. All proceeds go back to the production of this program. Thanks again. Presentations coming up. Well, we just finished the Grand Lodge of Illinois annual communications, and what a show. They switched around their entire line. They moved people out of line. It was a wild one. But not surprising, brotherhood prevailed. It was very cordial. And we met at the Illinois Lodge of Research, so thanks to everyone who came out to check out the new presentation that I did, Leadership. Competency is greater than feelings, making the right choices in leadership. So I really appreciate everybody who came out to that. The next big event is going to be November 21st. I'll be heading down to Indianapolis, Indiana to do a presentation. I'm excited to get to share some windshield time with my brother Adam, if all goes well. February 20th, 2025, I'll be doing something in Kansas, most likely. And June 7th, 2025, San Antonio Esoteric Summit. I'm part of a larger panel of speakers that are sure to bring some really amazing topics, and I'm sure they'll blow our minds. The first piece I have for you this week, I wanted to really theme this week, and it actually got kicked off from the idea of an email that I get. I'm on this email list for historyfacts.com, and it's really cool. So there are quite a number of emails that come out, maybe once, maybe twice a day that you get. So it is a little bit more active of an email list, I should say. But if you're like me, then you enjoy it and you take 5-10 minutes out of your day and read some of these cool history facts. This latest email that came out actually was really interesting to me because it brings up the oldest known music in the world. So the article is called "The Oldest Known Song is from the 14th century BCE, or before Common Era." I got this and it got me thinking about Masonic music and ritual music and the science behind it and possibly the quote-unquote magical influence of some of this. So let's check this out. The oldest song is from the 14th century BCE. Music is as old as humanity itself. Our Paleolithic ancestors likely sung lullabies to their children, and evidence of ancient instruments dates back some 40,000 years. But when it comes to recorded history, specific melodies are hard to come by. That's why the cuneiform tablet known as the Hurrian hymn number 6 is such an incredible artifact. Dating back to the 14th century BCE, some 3,400 years ago, it's the oldest known melody in human history. As the name suggests, the song was originally composed by the Hurrians, an ancient people who lived in parts of modern-day Iraq, Syria, and Turkey. Originally a dedication to the Mesopotamian goddess Nekal, the hymn was unearthed in the Syrian city of Ugarit in the 1950s, and the artifact is now housed at the National Museum of Damascus. The tablet contains not only near-complete musical notation and lyrics, but also instructions on how to perform the song on a 9-stringed lyre, a U-shaped harp that was popular throughout Mesopotamia. Many varied versions of the Hurrian hymn number 6 exist today, largely due to translation inconsistencies, but one of the most popular compositions is from Syrian-American composer Malik Jindali, who has performed the ancient piece with a solo piano and also a full orchestra. By the numbers. The approximate year the lyre was invented was about 3200 BCE. People who attended the largest concert of all time, a 1994 Rod Stewart performance in Brazil, 3.5 million. Studio albums recorded by Nigerian musician Fela Anikulapo Kuti, a world record, 46. The approximate time the Hurrians disappear from the historic record? 1000 BCE. And a little bit of did you know? There is an organ in Germany, which is currently playing a song that will end in the year 2640. On September 5th, 2001, a song began playing at St. Burkhardi Church in Halberstadt, Germany, and it won't be over until the year 2640. Composed by avant-garde artist John Cage in 1987, the song is titled Organ 2\ASLSP, or As Slow as Possible. And although the piece began in 2001, it opened with a 17-month-long pause before the first tone began to sound, and notes can last much longer. In early September 2020, for example, a crowd gathered at St. Burkhardi to usher in a note change, the first in about 7 years. The selection of this particular church to host the musical experiment is no coincidence. In 1361, the first organ to split an octave into 12 semitones was installed in the church, and some consider that occasion to be the birth of modern music. When Cage's drawn-out composition sounds its final note 6 centuries from now, the church will bag another accolade as host to the longest song ever performed. And this comes from historyfacts.com. I'll put a link to the original article back in the show notes, but what I just find fascinating is that we know songs probably exist from time immemorial and go all the way back to the beginning, when we first sort of noticed that there is a comfort in the human sound from one human to another, whether that's just the ability to talk and listen to somebody, or maybe it's something deeper, like a song or something along that idea. What's interesting here is that we have this Hurrian hymn number 6, which has all sorts of notations and even a rendition that can be played on a 9-stringed lyre. Just fascinating. Next, I would like to read a short piece from Brother Ang of Lord Carrington Lodge 111 and Lodge of Evolution 931, UGLV. And this is titled, The Value and Meaning of Music Within Freemasonry. As Freemasons, we are advised to study and appreciate the 7 liberal arts and sciences. These are known by us, one and all, as grammar, logic, rhetoric, astronomy, arithmetic, geometry, and music. Music has an important place within the workings of the lodge and is evident with the installation of the lodge organist, when and where they are present, and within the United Grand Lodge Victoria itself, the grand organist. The value we place upon music is also evident in the chorus, both at some lodges and at UGLV, as well as in the position of the Grand Herald, a trumpeter who plays fanfares. Music's history is found within Freemasonry long before the formal foundation of the United Grand Lodge of Victoria. It is found in the consecration of the UGLV and in a vast number of ensuing concerts, in the founding of a lodge specifically by choirists, in the name and in the honor of our very first Grand Master, Sir William Clark, in concerts written specifically for the UGLV, for Her Majesty Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, for HRH, the Prince of Wales, and much more. It is found intertwined with the fact that some quote-unquote earlier Masons were exceptionally talented and well-known musicians. People such as Wolfgang, Amadeus Mozart, and the amazing Gilbert and Sullivan, Haydn and Sibelius, Ludwig Beethoven, Johann Sebastian Bach, Puccini, Frank Liszt, and, well, as more recently, John Philip Sousa, John M. Cochran, and de St. George's and Irving Berlin. Some of our Masonic music is religious sounding, while other is very distinctly Masonic or well known for other words. The Magic Flute is noted for being Masonic, but both Mozart and Haydn also wrote music for use in lodges, and especially for Masonic funerals. Similarly, Amazing Grace and Abide With Me are the creations of Masonic talent. Music is a measure by which we can create harmony and contentment within a lodge, as well as sending a message related to a particular officer of the lodge, a message sometimes with a degree of humor, as when a treasurer arises and the organist plays the ABBA song, Money, Money, Money. It adds dimension to rituals and to a variety of ceremonies to our varied degree work, and in some sense to filling otherwise empty space, although its relevance and enjoyment go far further. According to Wikipedia, the organist or director of the music provides musical accompaniment to lodge proceedings. Although there is no set form, many lodge rooms are equipped with a pipe organ or electric organ, and in others there is provision for a wide range of instruments. In other places, the director of music operates recorded or digital music systems, such as at the Grand Lodge of Austria in Vienna. In the example of Lord Carrington Lodge, our unofficial director of electronic music is, of course, Worshipful Brother Lance Mick, Senior Warden. His amazing collection of Masonic music has changed our lodge in a positive way, and significantly added to what we do within the lodge. And that electronic format is the next generation, after the organ music that dominated our lodges for well over a century. Now, while there are rules that correctly prevent unauthorized music being played or sung whilst rituals are actually in progress, those who visit other lodges can attest to how a lodge with music being played makes one feel far more invited and welcome. Of course, there is prescribed tunes and odes which are optional but preferred within Victorian degree and other ceremonies. Certainly, Lord Carrington Lodge meetings are all the more impressive since Worshipful Brother McG brought his fine collection of recorded Masonic music to the lodge, and we thank him for it. And similarly, I have heard our incumbent Worshipful Master, Lodge Devotionist Organist Dennis M. play at several lodges, and wonderfully. The Sweet Concord of Music Sounds CD can be purchased from the UGLV office for a mere $4. And it provides music for the words in the booklet of the same name that we have. UGLV has, as we all know, a Grand Herald whose trumpet plays special role in events at UGLV, such as at quarterly communications, but also at every installation of every master of a lodge. He heralds specific episodes within the installation and, as such, is an intricate component of every ceremony. There is also the Grand Organist, whose role is basically the same as that of every lodge organist, and of course the Grand Choir, who add spectacle and glamour to every major event at UGLV, and there are always vacancies for those with an interest. Within the lodge, many have an organist, and two esteemed brethren here can tell us much more. But quite a number of lodges, such as the Dutagala Lodge in Essendon, also have wonderful choirs, and if you have heard them, you must be impressed. The position of organist within a lodge is not compulsory, but one which the Worshipful Master may appoint at his discretion. Lord Carrington is blessed to have at least two organists in Grand Organist Right Worshipful Brother Kevin McC and Organist Worshipful Brother Dennis M. and our own Worshipful Brother Reg V. He is learning how to play the trumpet for Masonic events and may one day become a herald. The installation of the organist goes as follows, and I was pleased to hear this presented at the recent North Melbourne installation. Brother, I appoint you organist of the lodge, and I invest you with the collar and jewel of your office. Your jewel, the lyre, is an emblem of music, one of the 7 liberal arts and sciences, the study of which is inculcated in the Fellowcraft's degree. The records of ancient history, both sacred and secular, testify that from the earliest times music has borne a more or less important part of the celebration of religious rites and ceremonies, that pagans and monotheists, the ancient Hebrews, and the more comparatively modern Christians have in all ages made full and free use of music as an aid to devotion and in the expression of praise and thanks, giving in the services of their several systems of religion. In like manner, Freemasonry from the earliest periods of its history has availed itself of the aid of music in the performance of its rites and ceremonies. And we must all feel how much impressiveness and solemnity is derived from the judicious introduction of instrumental music into these ceremonies. Music has been defined as the quote-unquote concord of sweet sounds. In this respect, it typifies the concord and harmony which has always been among the foremost characteristics of our order. Your jewel, therefore, the emblem of concord, should stimulate us to promote and to maintain concord, goodwill, and affection, not only among the members of our own lodge, but amongst all brethren of the craft. An identical charge comes with the installation of choir master. Should a worshipful master determine to appoint or appropriate volunteer within the lodge, let us not ignore the fact, as stated in the second degree lecture, music teaches us the art of forming concords so as to produce a delightful harmony by a mathematical and proportionate arrangement of acute, grave, and mixed sounds, and it is used in praise of the grand geometrician of the universe. Now, obviously, that comes from the Grand Lodge of Victoria underneath their ritual, and this was published on their website, lodgedevotion.net. I would highly recommend checking out their website because they have a number of different articles and abouts and famous Australian Freemasons and just a really awesome write-up on these things. I had a particular snicker at an image that appeared in this article, and it's a checklist. It says life goals, organist, and it's checked. And under that it says ninja, and that is also checked. But they have migrated their site. Some pages are still needing some reformatting and things, but you can check out again. Their website is lodgedevotion.net, and I'll put a link back to it in the show notes so you can check it out and explore their website a little bit more. Now, all this to say that there is this exceptional quality of music and sounds and the arrangement of these things that somehow makes people feel. Isn't it interesting? What is the link between our general feelings and music? So the music is definitely a vibration that's happening, that's changing the sound, is entering our ears and how we hear things, the vibrations, right? And yet there are feelings that are attributed to notes and songs, and these feelings come from chemical changes within the brain. So you could make this generalized statement that, of course, sounds have an effect on the production of chemicals in the human brain that elicit different feelings. And so I thought, wow, I could probably put something on the program that dives into this a little bit, and I think we will in the future. But for this particular episode, I thought it would be good to just read the abstract, which is a generalized overview of an academic paper on this show from a larger research paper called Inaudible High-Frequency Sounds Affect Brain Activity, the Hypersonic Effect. And now this was done by a number of Japanese students and was published in June of 2000. Now, much has been done on the subject since, but I thought this was really interesting, and it just kind of there's so many different topics within the idea of sound and its effect on the human brain and body and its biological functions. It was kind of a hat grab. I stuck my hand in a top hat full of different musical topics and how this relates to, biology, and I pulled out this article, right? And it serves as just one small example that we can look at. Here is the abstract. Although it is generally accepted that humans cannot perceive sounds in the frequency range above 20 kilohertz, the question of whether the existence of such inaudible, high-frequency components may affect the acoustic perception of audible sounds remains unanswered. In this study, we used non-invasive physiological measurements of brain responses to provide evidence that sounds containing high-frequency components, or HFCs, above the audible range significantly affect the brain activity of listeners. We used the gamelan music of Bali, which is extremely rich in HFCs with a non-stationary structure, as a natural sound source, dividing it into two components, an audible low-frequency component, LFC, below 22 kHz, and an HFC, above 22 kHz. Brain electrical activity and regional cerebral blood flow were measured as markers of neural activity, while subjects were exposed to sounds with various combinations of low frequency and high frequency. none of the subjects recognized the HFC as sound when it was presented alone. Nevertheless, the power spectra of the alpha frequency range of the spontaneous electroencephalogram recorded from the occipital region increased with statistical significance when the subjects were exposed to sound containing both an HFC and an LFC, compared with an otherwise identical sound from which the HFC was removed, as in the low frequency alone. In contrast, compared with the baseline, no enhancement of the alpha EEG was evident when either the high frequency or a low frequency was presented separately. Positron emission tomography measurements revealed that when an HFC and an LFC were presented together, the regional cerebral blood flow in the brainstem and the left thalamus increased significantly compared with a sound lacking the high frequency above 22 kHz, but that was otherwise identical. Simultaneous EEG measurements showed that the power of occipital alpha EEGs correlated significantly with the regional cerebral blood flow in the left thalamus. Psychological evaluation indicated that the subjects felt the sound containing an HFC to be more pleasant than the same sound lacking an HFC. These results suggest the existence of a previously unrecognized response to a complex sound containing particular types of high frequency above the audible range. We term this phenomenon the hypersonic effect. So, if that sounded complicated, and it is a little bit, what they basically say is that they established a way to know that these sounds were affecting the human brain through things like blood flow in certain areas of the brain and measuring electrical activity. Then they played let's just say the low frequency, and they played the high frequency, and then they played them together and separately and whatnot. And what they realized is that there is an effect to the brain that can be recorded even though you can't actually hear the sound. So this is just one example of how audible frequencies and inaudible frequencies affect the electrical activity of the brain as well as the regional blood flow of the brain. So then you have to ask yourself the next set of questions that comes along is there a way to direct certain types of tones and frequencies that will enact certain things to happen within the brain that cause specific effects, emotional reactions, or even what we might consider magical reactions? More on this in a few weeks when we revisit the topic. But that's it for this week. I hope you all enjoyed. One more time, I want to thank our producers, fellows, contributors, and legacy partners. And if you're curious on how you can help support the show, head on over to our website, wcypodcast.com, click on Support the Show, and check out the various options. Until next week, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson. Enjoy these low-frequency oscillations.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.
WCY Media.
Why, that's BBS rock.